From the very beginning, high expectations were placed on this film, and its budget and salaries broke records of its time. The creators not only met these expectations, but exceeded them, producing one of the most successful and influential films of the genre, which revolutionized the use of special effects in cinema. Movies Inside Out presents Terminator 2: Judgment Day is a 1991 sci-fi action film directed by James Cameron, which managed to gain even greater recognition than the 1984 Terminator. Why was Schwarzenegger afraid the film might fail? How did a song by Sting influence the plot? Which scene did the producers try to remove? And should we expect a franchise reboot? We'll tell you all this and more in our new video. Let's go. The creation story. The idea of making a sequel to The Terminator emerged shortly after the premiere of the first film, which unexpectedly became a massive hit in 1984, grossing over $78 million on a very modest $6 million budget. The film established James Cameron as one of Hollywood's top directors, while Arnold Schwarzenegger solidified his status as an action star. Among all those involved, it was Arnold who was the most interested in producing a sequel. He felt that the Terminator story could be continued. However, starting production on a second film was not so simple. Discussions about a sequel continued until 1989, not only due to Cameron's busy schedule, but also because of disputes with the primary rights holders of the Terminator concept, the film company Hemdale. At one point, there was even consideration that Cameron would serve only as a producer and screenwriter, while the director's chair would go to John McTiernan, who had directed Die Hard. By the way, you can check out our video about the making of that hit as well. Schwarzenegger, however, knew that Hemdale was struggling financially, so he suggested that Mario Kassar, the owner of the independent company Carolco Pictures, buy the rights. After tense negotiations, Kassar's studio acquired the rights to continue the Terminator story for $17 million, almost 3 times the entire budget of the first film. Kassar offered Cameron $6 million for directing and writing the screenplay, which was a significant sum at the time.
Easy money.
Since Carolco was a relatively small studio, other companies joined the production, including Cameron's Lightstorm Entertainment, Gale Ann Hurd's Pacific Western Productions, and the French film company Le Studio Canal Plus. Additionally, Carolco signed a contract with distributor TriStar Pictures, which required the sequel's release no later than July 1991. Due to the tight schedule, Cameron had only 7 weeks to write the script. In March 1990, along with his friend and co-writer William Wisher, the director began developing a concept that was quite unusual for a sci-fi action movie. Cameron decided to move away from the theme of the original film and focus more on the almost familial bond between Sarah, John, and the Terminator. Cameron's initial idea was that Skynet would send 2 identical T-800 robots back in time, both played by Schwarzenegger. However, Wisher felt that watching 2 clones battle each other wouldn't be engaging for audiences. Instead, they settled on another of Cameron's ideas, a liquid metal robot with the appearance of a lean, average-built man. This became the more advanced T-1000 Terminator. At the same time, the writers decided to give the T-800 the ability to learn and develop emotions, allowing viewers to feel more connected to the character. Since they weren't constrained by budget concerns while writing, some of the most complex scenes had to be cut later. However, throughout the writing process, Cameron and Wisher frequently consulted with the visual effects studio Industrial Light and Magic to determine which of their ideas could realistically be brought to life on screen. Casting. Arnold Schwarzenegger enthusiastically returned to his role since his character had become more complex and interesting compared to the first film. Interestingly, for a long time, Arnold claimed that he was the one who insisted on making the T-800 more human and less violent.
I'm a cybernetic organism, living tissue over a metal endoskeleton.
However, Cameron stated that, on the contrary, Schwarzenegger had to be convinced that such a character would not ruin the film. Eventually, Arnold admitted that he had indeed wanted more brutality and kills since he was competing with Sylvester Stallone over the number of on-screen casualties. Cameron found his argument ridiculous and deliberately ensured that his character wouldn't kill a single person in the film. Arnold was very worried about how fans would react to the reduced level of violence, but later acknowledged that Cameron's decision was brilliant. Schwarzenegger's salary for the sequel was $15 million, whereas he had received only $750,000 for the first movie. Many film producers accused Carolco Studios of unjustifiably inflating actors' salaries, but the company's management explained that stars ensured success in international markets. James Cameron never seriously considered other actresses for the role of Sarah Connor, but he did develop backup options in case Linda Hamilton declined to return. She was initially hesitant, but Cameron warned Carolco that he couldn't finish the script without knowing whether Hamilton would reprise her role. The producers then offered her $1 million, and she agreed, though she was somewhat frustrated by the massive pay gap between her and Schwarzenegger. Additionally, she set a condition for Cameron. Her character had to transform from a weak waitress into someone borderline insane, as Sarah likely wouldn't have remained mentally stable after the events of the first film.
Good morning, Dr. Silberman. How's the knee?
Fine, Sarah.
Incidentally, Hamilton suffers from bipolar disorder in real life, which often causes severe mood swings. Hamilton rigorously prepared for the role, training with a coach for 3 hours a day, 6 days a week, and adhering to a strict diet, losing about 26 pounds, 12 kilograms. She also learned basic judo and military training, and even mastered lock-picking for the psychiatric hospital scene. Balancing training, filming, and family life, Linda only managed to sleep 4 hours a night. She described that period as hell, though she admitted she loved her new physical form. Linda Hamilton's twin sister, Leslie Hamilton Guerin, also participated in the filming. She had never acted before or after Terminator 2 and worked as a nurse. Leslie portrayed the T-1000 disguised as Sarah Connor. Additionally, Linda's 20-month-old son, Dalton, appeared in the film as the 2-year-old John from Sarah's Nightmare. Hundreds of boys auditioned for the role of John Connor, most of whom had experience in commercials, something Cameron disliked as they were too accustomed to looking happy and cheerful on camera. However, 13-year-old Edward Furlong had never acted before and came across as much more natural. His resemblance to Linda Hamilton also played a role in securing the part, for which he was paid just $30,000. The young actor had to take acting lessons and learn how to ride a motorcycle and handle firearms. Interestingly, Cameron disliked the idea of children using guns on screen, so he decided that John would carry only ammunition clips, not an actual weapon.
Look, I'm gonna go get my mom, and I order you to help me.
Rumor has it that the character of John was inspired by Sting's song Russians.
I hope the Russians love their children too.
One day, Cameron paid attention to its lyrics and thought, I hope the Russians love their children too, because the idea of nuclear war contradicts life itself. Interestingly, the fictional Judgment Day, August 29, 1997, coincides with the anniversary of the first Soviet atomic bomb test in 1949. The role of the T-1000 was initially meant for singer Billy Idol, but he was involved in an accident before filming and suffered a severe leg injury. Other candidates included Steven Seagal and WASP metal band member Blackie Lawless, who was deemed too tall. Furthermore, Michael Biehn was also considered for the role, with the idea that the T-1000 would deliberately take on Kyle Reese's appearance, but the filmmakers decided that such a move would confuse audiences. Ultimately, the role of the T-1000 went to Robert Patrick, who caught James Cameron's attention in Die Hard 2. The director wanted a leaner actor who resembled a young police officer, and Patrick's look fit the role perfectly. To develop his character's presence, Patrick took inspiration from Schwarzenegger's performance in the first Terminator and also studied the behavior of predatory animals. He underwent specialized training to handle firearms efficiently, ensuring he didn't flinch when firing and learning to reload weapons with both his left and right hands. Patrick also trained extensively in running, breathing only through his nose and avoiding blinking to appear more robotic. Eventually, he became fast enough to outrun a moving motorcycle.
You okay?
Fine. Say, that's a nice bike.
The role of Miles Dyson was specifically intended for a black actor, and the filmmaker's first choice was Denzel Washington. However, he declined the part, saying that the character just looks scared and sweats the whole time. The role ultimately went to Joe Morton, who deliberately avoided interacting with his co-stars on set to maintain distance between his character and the others.
I don't know how much longer I can hold this.
Janelle Voight, John's foster mother, was played by Jeanette Goldstein, who had gained recognition for her role as Private Vasquez in Cameron's Aliens.
I swear, I have had it with that goddamn kid. He won't even answer me anymore.
Honey, move.
Would you get off your butt and help me?
Her husband Todd was played by Xander Berkeley, known for his work in Sid and Nancy.
Could I speak with him, please?
Could if you were here. He took off on his bike this morning, so he could be anywhere.
Meanwhile, 14-year-old Danny Cooksey, who had already appeared in several TV roles, was cast as Tim, John's friend.
Now. Hey, man, there's this cop scoping for you. Check it out.
In addition to the Hamilton twins, real-life twins Don and Dan Stanton appeared in the film, portraying the hospital security guard and the T-100 disguised as him. They had previously worked together on Good Morning, Vietnam, and Gremlins 2, the new batch.
Hey, I got a full house.
That's good, Louis. Must be my lucky day.
As for psychiatrist Peter Silberman, the role was reprised by Earl Bowen, who had played multiple doctors in other films. Notably, he became the only actor besides Schwarzenegger to also appear in the third installment of the franchise.
I don't see any choice but to recommend to the review board that you stay here for another 6 months.
The filming process. The filming of Terminator 2 Judgment Day began on October 9, 1990, and wrapped up 6 months later on March 28, 1991, 3 weeks behind schedule. The movie was not filmed in chronological order, with production prioritizing scenes that required complex visual effects. While this is common practice, it made Schwarzenegger's job more difficult as he had to gradually convey the humanization of the T-800, but wasn't always sure if his performance matched the specific scene's emotional progression. Initially, Terminator 2 had a budget of $60 million, but it quickly grew to $75 million, and later to $88 million. Even that wasn't the final number, leading Carolco Studios to suggest cutting certain scenes, including the opening bar scene with the bikers. The studio hoped Schwarzenegger would convince Cameron to remove it, but the actor refused outright, saying only a bureaucrat with no understanding of filmmaking would make such a decision. Interestingly, while filming that scene, a woman entered the bar, so focused on getting a drink that she didn't notice the film crew. After some time, she finally saw Schwarzenegger standing in just a pair of briefs and, bewildered, asked what was going on. Without missing a beat, Arnie deadpanned, "Men's strip night. Rumor has it, he made a decent amount of tips that night." Creating the film's 150 digital effects, totaling just 3.5 minutes of screen time, took 10 months and roughly $16 million. Of that, 8 months and $5.5 million were spent solely on animating the T-1000. The digital effects were handled by ILM, which had to hire several dozen new specialists to meet the tight deadline. The effects were so complex that rendering just 15 seconds of footage took about 10 days. The technique used for T-1000's transformations is called morphing, which became highly popular in the 1990s. One of the most famous examples is Michael Jackson's Black or White music video. Interestingly, the King of Pop's birthday also falls on August 29th, the same date as Judgment Day in the film. Because of this, he is briefly referenced in an alternate ending. However, Sarah Connor mistakenly states that Jackson turned 40 in 1997, when in reality he would have been 39. But more on errors and deleted scenes later. Although Terminator 2 is remembered for its groundbreaking CGI, it also made extensive use of practical effects, including miniatures, prosthetics, and animatronics, created by 3 additional special effects studios. One of the most complex scenes, combining both digital and practical effects, was the nuclear explosion in Sarah's nightmare. The special effects team studied numerous real-life nuclear test videos to ensure the scene looked as realistic as possible. For the explosion, a highly detailed miniature model of Los Angeles was built. The blast itself was created using a flamethrower, while the mushroom cloud effect was achieved with a lit acrylic column, which was later enhanced with CGI. Interestingly, US nuclear lab scientists unofficially called this scene the most realistic depiction of a nuclear explosion ever created for a film. For the shot where Sarah's body is reduced to a skeleton, 3 different puppets were created, each depicting a different stage of disintegration. For the final skeleton, the team used a real medical skeleton reinforced with metal rods. Its outer layer, resembling burnt flesh, was made from tissue paper painted with tempera to mimic the shape of the actress's body. The layer was filled with shredded napkins, and when the team used pneumatic mortars to blow it apart, it disintegrated to reveal the skeleton beneath. To simulate bullet wounds on the T-1000, visual effects master Stan Winston developed special foam models that were embedded in Robert Patrick's costume. These models were held in a folded position with clamps and, on cue, would spring open like flowers. The process of closing them was later achieved through computer-generated effects. The director also tasked Winston with creating 10 skulls for the opening scene, where the Terminator crushes a skull underfoot. Knowing Cameron's perfectionism, Winston made 26 copies in case multiple takes were needed. Sure enough, the director used all of them across 26 takes. The version seen in the final film is from the 5th take. For the liquid nitrogen scene, crushed Christmas tree tinsel was used to create the frost effect on Robert Patrick's body. It was glued onto his skin and dusted with artificial snow. Over 5 nights, Cameron filmed Patrick's body freezing, starting from his legs and working up to his head, with all the shots later combined using CGI. For the final moments of this scene, where the T-1000 shatters from a gunshot, a mannequin filled with foam bits and flakes was used. Mannequins were also used for the T-800, such as in the scene where SWAT officers gun him down. Since the model moved somewhat awkwardly, Schwarzenegger had to adjust his walk to make it harder for audiences to distinguish between the real and fake versions. For the effect of the burned-out truck outline, adhesive tape was used and illuminated with a directed light beam to create a warm glow. The melting T-1000 struggling to reform was achieved using mercury, which was manipulated with streams of air from hair dryers. The vat of molten metal was actually an acrylic tub lined with lights and filled with water and mineral oil mixed with powdered sugar. Cameron claimed that the Terminators never blink throughout the entire film. However, this is not entirely true. The T-1000 can be seen blinking during his phone conversation with John Connor's foster parents, as well as during the shootout in the mall hallway. The T-800 also blinks after the bar scene. Stunt coordination for the film cost approximately $1 million, an unprecedented budget for stunts at the time. One of the most challenging sequences was the nighttime freeway chase, shot on a 5.6-mile, 9-kilometer, highway. At one point, all the wiring for lighting the road was stolen, forcing the crew to rent cables from other film studios and set up security around them. Additionally, frequent rainstorms disrupted filming, so scenes with Sarah and John in the van were shot under an overpass, with crew members shaking the vehicle to create the illusion of high-speed movement. The explosion of the Cyberdyne building was real. Filming took place in an abandoned office building over 3 to 4 weeks, using more than 10 cameras, including a helicopter-mounted camera and remotely controlled cameras for capturing the most dangerous shots. The scene where the tanker truck flips onto its side and crashes into the steel mill was originally supposed to be filmed without special effects. However, Cameron was unable to get the truck to roll over in the exact spot he wanted, so the final scene was created by combining real footage with miniature models. During the first chase sequence, the T-800's motorcycle was supposed to jump 59 feet, 18 meters, off a 15-foot, 4.5 meter drop. This stunt was too dangerous to perform without safety measures, so a special rig was used to support the motorcycle. The shot was only completed on the 20th take, and the stuntman performing the jump had to spend several hours in the makeup chair while a latex replica of Schwarzenegger's face was applied. For the stunt where the T-1000 jumps from a motorcycle onto a helicopter, a lifting mechanism was used to hoist the motorcycle off the ground and drop it onto a pile of cardboard boxes. This stunt and the helicopter were filmed separately, then combined using CGI. The cables were manually painted out in each frame during post-production. The filmmakers were concerned that a CGI-rendered helicopter flying under an overpass would look unrealistic, so the stunt pilot suggested doing it for real. The crew refused to film the scene due to the extreme risk, so James Cameron took the camera himself and personally filmed 2 takes. Fortunately, no one was injured during this sequence. However, Linda Hamilton suffered permanent hearing damage in one ear while filming the elevator shootout because she forgot to wear earplugs. Additionally, Schwarzenegger injured his hand while skillfully flipping the heavy shotgun. His doctor advised the crew to pause production, but Cameron insisted they didn't have time for breaks. Several ideas also emerged spontaneously on set. For instance, the wrecking of the tow truck's roof was unplanned. It turned out that the vehicle didn't fit under any of the overpasses. The emotional thumbs-up gesture from the T-800 before his destruction was also improvised during filming. Linda Hamilton actually found it too sentimental.
I cannot self-terminate. You must lower me into the steel.
Didn't exist during filming. It was added by Schwarzenegger in post-production after test audiences were confused about why the T-800 couldn't destroy itself. The opening scene of the film was actually shot at the end of production. It was filmed at an abandoned factory using cars and bicycles that had been burned in a 1989 fire at Universal Studios, while the Terminators were represented by animatronic models. Edward Furlong went through a noticeable growth spurt during the filming, which created several challenges. For some scenes shot later in the schedule, he had to stand in a trench to maintain the height difference with his on-screen mother. Additionally, his voice began to break, requiring dubbing in post-production. Interestingly, his original voice was kept only in the scene where he explains to the Terminator why people cry.
Why do you cry?
You mean people?
Yeah.
I don't know. We just cry. You know, when it hurts.
Growing up without a father, Edward quickly bonded with Schwarzenegger, who took care of him both on and off the set. Notably, all the fun interactions, like John teaching the T-800 to high-five, were completely improvised by the actors, as Cameron wanted to capture the natural chemistry between the characters. The explosive used in the Cyberdyne building scene was called polydichloride euthamol. In reality, no such substance exists, but the name is taken from the banned chemical in the 1981 film Outland. Cameron used this as a tribute to his friend and the film's director, Peter Hyams. The sound effects in Terminator 2 were as high quality and intricate as the visual effects, despite being far less expensive to produce. For example, the sound of the T-1000 passing through metal bars was created using dog food slowly oozing out of a can. To produce the noise of the T-1000 morphing, sound engineers placed a condom over a microphone and submerged it in oatmeal. To make the truck chase scenes sound even more intense, the normal engine noise was mixed with recordings of a lion's roar. For the film's iconic metallic theme, composer Brad Fiedel recorded himself striking a cast iron skillet, while the dying groans of the T-1000 were performed by James Cameron himself. In the shopping mall scene, the T-800 carries a gun hidden inside a box of roses. This detail inspired Schwarzenegger to suggest using a song from Guns N' Roses for the soundtrack. "We have both guns and roses," he reasoned. Ultimately, You Could Be Mine was chosen. Interestingly, the minigun the T-800 uses to shoot at police cars was originally much smaller. However, when Cameron saw it on set, he realized it looked too small in Schwarzenegger's hands. A larger model was quickly ordered, but it was so heavy that only Arnold could lift it. Surprisingly, Arnold speaks only about 700 words throughout the entire film. In the scene where the T-800 explains the history of Skynet and Dyson to Sarah, Schwarzenegger actually reads his lines from cue cards taped to the windshield. Considering Arnold's $15 million salary, he was paid roughly $21,000 per word. His famous line,
"Hasta la vista, baby,"
alone cost the producers nearly $86,000. Movie mistakes and errors. Terminator 2 isn't just a legendary action movie. It's also packed with continuity errors and fun mistakes that might make you smile. Let's take a look at some of the most interesting ones. Ready? Let's go. Perfectly aligned burned cars. At the beginning of the movie, all the burned out cars are lined up in neat rows. However, in a real post-apocalyptic setting, they would have been scattered chaotically due to explosions and destruction. Apparently, even in the apocalypse, order is more important than chaos. Vanishing bullet holes. T-1000 shoots T-800 in the back, but just a minute later, the bullet holes on his jacket have disappeared. However, later in the movie, they mysteriously reappear. The shape-shifting truck. The truck that T-1000 hijacks changes models mid-chase. You can spot this by looking at the side mirrors. Sometimes they have marker lights, and sometimes they don't. Also, after the truck scrapes against the wall, the right side mirror remains intact as if nothing happened. A true super truck. The magic motorcycle. John's motorcycle initially falls to the left, but in the next shot, it's suddenly leaning to the right. Diesel explosion? T-1000's tanker truck explodes from a spark, even though it runs on diesel fuel, which doesn't ignite that easily. Apparently, even the laws of physics take a backseat to dramatic effects in this movie. T-1000's tactical mistake. Why didn't T-1000 disguise himself as one of John's loved ones to get close to him faster? That would have been much easier. Maybe he just wanted to enjoy the chase a little longer? The shape-shifting cup. The cup in the security guard's hand is noticeably different from the one that falls to the floor. Too many bones. Sarah claims that the human body has 215 bones.
There are 215 bones in the human body. That's one.
But the actual number is at most 208. Looks like she added a few extra for dramatic effect. Also, if she had really broken the guard's arm, both the radius and ulna would have been damaged. T-1000 stuck gun. When T-1000 squeezes through the metal bars, his gun gets stuck. However, the bars are spaced wide enough that it should have passed through easily. Police lights that change colors. The police car's lights are blue in one shot, but suddenly switch to blue and yellow in another. Looks like the car decided to add a little party vibe to the chase. Driving in the dark, literally. The heroes drive at night with their headlights off to avoid attracting attention. However, in reality, this would make them even more suspicious to the police. Stealth level 0. The knife with a mind of its own. In a close-up shot, the knife blade points upward, but in the next, wider shot, it's pointing downward. Looks like the knife wanted to experiment with different angles for the scene. Cameraman reflection. In one scene, a cameraman and his equipment can be clearly seen reflected in a glass door. Cyberdyne's backup plan? Blowing up Cyberdyne's headquarters wouldn't really stop Skynet. Surely they had backup servers somewhere else, making the heroes' efforts pointless. Future technology 1, heroes 0. Magically opening van doors. The back doors of the getaway van are closed, but when Sarah and John run up to them, they somehow open on their own. The helicopter's magic door. When the pilot jumps out of the helicopter, the door swings shut. However, in the next shot, it's open again, and T-1000 closes it himself. T-1000's illogical command. T-1000 tells Sarah to call John, even though he could have just morphed into her and done it himself. Maybe he just didn't feel like putting in the extra effort. So there you have it. Some of the most interesting mistakes in Terminator 2. Which ones did you find the funniest or most surprising? Share your thoughts in the comments. Deleted scenes and bloopers. Terminator 2: Judgment Day exists in 4 different versions: the theatrical cut, the special edition, the extended special edition, and the 3D version. In 1993, a special edition of Terminator 2 was released, featuring 15 minutes of new and alternate scenes, as well as an additional minute of hidden and further extended sequences. For example, in the special edition, Kyle Reese appears to Sarah in a dream. John tries to teach the T-800 how to smile, and in the scene where the T-800 deliberately calls the dog by the wrong name, the T-1000 realizes the dog's actual name isn't Wolfie and kills it. In the extended cut, the T-1000 then searches John's room and finds a box containing letters from his mother and her photographs. Additionally, the extended edition features an alternate ending. In this version, an elderly Sarah narrates the story of the Terminator while watching her grown-up son play with his daughter. However, since this ending completely ruled out any sequels, the producers decided to remove it from the theatrical cut. Interestingly, many of the special edition scenes were included in the Australian theatrical release, while the UK version had several violent scenes removed to secure a lower rating. A 3D version of Judgment Day was released in 2017, in which some of the original film's mistakes and continuity errors were corrected. And now, as always, let's wrap things up with a fun collection of bloopers and the most interesting and amusing behind-the-scenes moments.
Close up. I want to be on because
Worldwide recognition. The production of Terminator 2 was only completed 2 days before its theatrical release, and the final film print was delivered to theaters just the night before the premiere. Despite the tight schedule, the filmmakers managed to hold 2 test screenings to ensure the movie resonated well with audiences. The final budget of the film ranged from $94 million to $102 million. At the time, Terminator 2 was considered the most expensive independent film ever made, and many media outlets predicted that Carolco Pictures would go bankrupt. Incidentally, the studio did declare bankruptcy 5 years later, following the financial disasters of Showgirls and Cutthroat Island. Months before the release of Judgment Day, an extensive marketing campaign was launched, costing approximately $20 million. Despite the film receiving an R rating, which restricted audiences under 18 from watching without adult supervision, The merchandising was targeted primarily at children, featuring action figures, toys, puzzles, and more. Later, comic books, video games, and novelizations were also released. The world premiere of Terminator 2 took place in Los Angeles on July 1st, 1991, attended by numerous Hollywood stars. The film was widely released on July 3rd, just in time for the 4th of July holiday weekend in the US. The movie remained in North American theaters for about 26 weeks, grossing $205 million and becoming the highest grossing film of the year. Terminator 2 also set multiple records internationally, becoming the first film in history to earn over $300 million outside the US. Its total worldwide box office reached approximately $520 million, making it the third highest grossing film of all time upon release, behind Star Wars 1977 and E.T. the Extraterrestrial 1982. To this day, it remains the most commercially successful film of Arnold Schwarzenegger's career. Beyond its massive box office success, Judgment Day received widespread critical acclaim. Reviewers praised its groundbreaking special effects, the evolution of Schwarzenegger's character, and James Cameron's exceptional ability to craft high-quality blockbusters. However, some critics criticized the film's message about preserving peace through violence. Naturally, the film was a major contender during awards season. Terminator 2 remains the only film in the franchise to receive 6 Academy Award nominations, winning 4: Best Sound Editing, Best Makeup, and Best Visual Effects. Cameron had hoped Linda Hamilton would receive an acting nomination, but the Academy only recognized the movie's technical achievements. Interestingly, Judgment Day became the only 20th century sequel to win an Oscar when its predecessor hadn't even been nominated. BAFTA also honored the film for its sound and visual effects. Beyond the technical aspects, the film's direction and performances were recognized by the MTV Movie Awards and the Saturn Awards, both of which named Terminator 2 the best film of the year. The impact of Judgment Day on the film industry was immense. It set new standards for sequels and action movies in general. Its groundbreaking innovations in CGI visual effects demonstrated the potential of digital filmmaking and paved the way for technically ambitious films like Jurassic Park and The Matrix. It also served as an inspiration for later big-budget franchises. Unsurprisingly, Terminator 2. Judgment Day had a significant influence on the careers of both Arnold Schwarzenegger and James Cameron. Schwarzenegger solidified his status as one of the biggest global stars, surpassing actors like Mel Gibson and Tom Cruise in popularity. Meanwhile, Cameron secured a $500 million deal with 20th Century Fox to produce 12 films. The film also launched Edward Furlong's acting career, leading to roles in several moderately successful projects. However, he later struggled with substance abuse, which led to him being excluded from future Terminator movies. His fame quickly faded, and today, he only occasionally appears in low-budget productions. While the other actors continued working in film and television, Terminator 2 remained the defining work of their careers. The film also had an impact on the personal lives of its creators. During production, James Cameron and Linda Hamilton began a romantic relationship, eventually marrying in 1997. However, they divorced 2 years later, though they remained friends. A strong friendship also formed between Cameron and Schwarzenegger, leading to another collaboration on the action film True Lies. Although Cameron and co-writer William Wisher originally considered Judgment Day to be the definitive conclusion of the Terminator saga, 4 more sequels were released. In 2003, Terminator 3: Rise of the Machines premiered, followed by Terminator Salvation in 2009, Terminator Genisys in 2015, and Terminator: Dark Fate in 2019. However, none of the sequels managed to match the success of the second film in terms of box office revenue or critical reception. Still, James Cameron has not ruled out the possibility of rebooting the franchise with a new cast, though no concrete plans for future projects have been announced. So, which Terminator film is your favorite?